Okay, here we are. Alt.nerd.obsessive. Worst episode ever.
Hey everybody, welcome to Worst Episode Ever, a podcast for people who love The Simpsons, by people who love The Simpsons, about how much we hate The Simpsons. We are here trying to find which is the worst episode ever, and as always, my name is Dan.
And as always, my name is Jack.
Today, Jack, we're back. Back in action, back in the New York groove.
We're back in the New York groove. I'm just going to repeat what you're saying, but with the
But actually put it to H.
slightly
Frehley's.
with the melody. Yeah.
We are here again. We're going to be watching an episode from season 22 called Lisa Simpson, This Isn't Your Life.
Oh, I see what they did.
Yeah.
They added the word not.
Well, we've already done an episode, Homer Simpson, This Is Your Wife, and now it's Isn't Your Life?
I can't wait for season 30's.
How many puns can they get?
Bart Simpson, here's your knife.
Maggie Simpson, here is your stripe. It's about her working in the sugar mines.
I couldn't think of one in the last 5 seconds, so let's
Let's move on. This episode originally aired November 14th, 2010, season 22. Jack, have you seen this one?
I don't think so.
I have definitely not seen this one.
Maybe. This is my DVR period, so.
Okay. It's like Picasso's blue period. Is
Exactly.
your DVR period? Did you make that reference before?
He in his blue period, he was making amazing works of art. In my DVR period, I was literally watching the worst kinds of TV because I could.
Right.
I watched every episode of John and Kate Plus 8.
You were
because
feeling
I
blue.
Could.
Why would you watch John and
Because
Kate?
I could. Because I could set my DVR.
You have a limited amount of time on this earth, Jack.
I watched every single episode. I loved it. I cried when they renewed their vows. I'm crying a little bit just thinking about it. They had that Hawaiian guy sing Over the Rainbow.
Oh, my God. We have a guest who's going to join us in a second. He's technically in the room already, but he's not allowed to speak until we introduce him.
And he has lots of things to say about my John and Kate Plus 8.
But we'll get there after the break. We're going to take a break to watch this episode. If you have to do that, you can do it on simpsonsworld.com if you're in the U.S. or wherever you've been watching episodes for the past 104 episodes of this series. And we're going to take a break. You can go to wepodcast.com in the meantime, too. You know, that never hurts. See what we got going on over there.
Yeah, check out our YouTube channel.
Our YouTube channel, our Reddit, Twitter stuff.
Our Instagram with 3 photos in the last 2 years.
Yeah. Do we even have an Instagram? I don't think I follow our Instagram.
You don't do anything. I do. I'm taking care of it. I do all our social. Do you like my little friend? You were telling me the other day that you now get your news through my Frinkiac.
Anytime there's like a meme like that's coming up on Twitter, I first hear about it from our Twitter after we start getting likes, because I get the likes on my phone.
President Trump elected.
I'm like,
what a surprise.
Let's go Fifi. By the time this episode's coming out, that'll have been weeks ago.
Yeah, we're old men now. Anyway, let's
so we're going to take a break,
episode.
and we're going to watch Lisa Simpson, This Isn't Your Life.
I still don't have another IF pun.
It's fine.
What's so wrong with me?
Nothing, sweetie, nothing. Here, let me explain. She does not want to turn out like you didn't. Not until diplomatic, trapped, help. Remember nothing.
So that was Lisa Simpson, This Isn't Your Life.
It sure was, Jack.
So we've had a couple of people suggest this episode. Correct
me
if I'm wrong.
Literally, one couple. We had 2 people suggest this episode. Eric Kane suggested this episode. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Eric. And he said it was good.
He said it's a good post-classic episode.
All right, we may disagree.
We may have some words with you, Eric.
And the second person who recommended it is...
No, I guess we have 3 because our guest recommended
you bastard, you ruined my whole thing.
No, I didn't. Lynn Sokolow also recommended this episode.
Did she say it was good?
They said it has a good premise, and then there's a lot of text that I can't skim it all. But thank you for your episode suggestion.
What is it, like a sentence?
I don't read so good. I don't know.
I'm seeing double 4
What's the sentence
Pacing
say?
and exposition problems, which
Was
I
that so
certainly
hard?
agree with.
Was that so
Nailed
hard?
it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Our third person that suggested this episode is actually here in studio, Steele Filipek. How's it going, Steele?
How's it going, everybody?
Doing? Oh, well, things have been better.
Yeah.
Specifically, they were better 25 minutes ago before I had to watch this episode.
25 minutes with credits and opening scene and extra commentary. You know, otherwise full story, 18 minutes maybe. Not
Maybe.
Yeah, you cut out the Itchy and Scratchy cartoon at the beginning, you're down to 17 minutes.
Cut out the B plot with Bart and Nelson. You're down to like 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
And then
maybe.
really music cues, they don't really count either. So
Yeah.
There's like a good 30 seconds.
There
in
are
this
maybe
episode.
3 beats in this entire episode.
Yeah. No extra beat alarm here. There's only 3.
it's a 3-beat salad.
It's a 3-beat salad, and all the beats are rotten.
Steele, I really want to know why you picked this episode and how you disagree with the other people who did.
Well,
But first,
who are you, Steele?
but first,
what
we
are you
need,
doing
we
here?
need to do Steele Filipek, this is your life.
Yes, indeed. I'm Steele Filipek. I'm the executive editor at Starlight Runner Entertainment. We're a transmedia production company. We've worked on such films as Men in Black 3, Tron Legacy, Pirates of the Caribbean. We've also done work with Dexter and on many other fine programs and franchises, Coca-Cola, Microsoft, and we also do socio-political work as well. And I happen to write screenplays, video games, and radio shows as well.
So you're a slacker. You do nothing.
Yeah, you do nothing. And fans,
You also brought homebrewed beer.
Yes, I did.
For us to drink in between recording sessions today.
and you're holding both of us on your shoulders right now. It's quite amazing.
You're also running a 5K. We're
At this time, right now.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's the
me
first
and Dan
podcast
are
first.
on segways.
Fans of We Studios will know Steele has appeared on 90s Percentile, so you should check out that episode, and maybe he's been on again.
A couple episodes,
Yeah, he's been on a couple episodes, so yeah.
So definitely check that out. Actually, I believe you were on our first post-Trump election
Yes,
episode.
you were,
That was
yes.
So
exact,
feelings were hot that night.
Yes.
We talked mostly about TV serialization and a little bit of animated television.
It was a
for the
good
90s.
episode.
good
We
episode.
highly
Check it out.
recommend it. Speaking of animated shows, are you a fan of The Simpsons?
I love The Simpsons. I grew up, Fox 53 in Pittsburgh would do a double episode. They'd do 6 o'clock, then they'd put on Mama's Family at 6:30, and then they'd
Nice.
do another Simpsons episode at 7 o'clock. They shuffled that around. Occasionally Martin was on.
A
you
Mama's
know.
Family sandwich.
Yeah,
with
yeah.
Simpsons as bread.
I have watched way more episodes of Mama's Family.
I used to watch Mama's Family all the time back in the day.
I was like 15 before I realized it wasn't Carol Burnett playing
yeah,
the
me
mom.
too. Yeah.
So I've probably seen every episode from season 1 till season 12 twice, at the very least.
So we're still talking Mama's Family?
Yeah, oh yeah. You know, I probably saw more episodes than the showrunner of that show.
The post-classic years
So
of
you,
Mama's
so you
Family.
watch season 1 to 12.
Yeah.
Well, what do you consider the classic range of The Simpsons?
I would mean the absolute classic is 3 to 7. For me, I would even include season 8. It's a little weaker, but it's still a really strong season. And I enjoy a lot of episodes from 2, 9, and 10 as well. So like that's, the peak is right around season 5, 6, 7.
Yeah.
Then it begins to slowly slide down. By the time you get into season 12 and 13, like for me, that's when it begins to.
There's
kinda
some
slide
stretch
out.
marks showing
Yeah.
on the
Start
old,
climbing
the
the
old
mountain,
grim hair.
the mountain of purgatory.
I still watched, up through season 15, like every Sunday. I was there, and then it slowly became like, oh, if I remember to watch it, and then if I'm around, and the past 5 or 6 seasons, I haven't watched more than an episode a year on the day of. I've watched it later on, but
You just described Cats in the Cradle, but instead of the dad and his son, it was you and
Yeah.
The Simpsons. And
So that's-
you're trying to play ball with The Simpsons. And
So that's pretty on par with at least what I did. I think season 15 is around where I tapped out. So you don't watch the post-classic, what we call, like the newer episodes now.
I
HD.
will. I'll
The
catch
HD
up. So
era.
this is the reason I suggested this episode.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question.
Is that every year I say, The Simpsons has fallen off, and one of my friends will say, well, no, actually, it's gotten a lot better, and there's typically 2 or 3 episodes a season that are really good, and
Sure.
maybe not on par with the classic ones, but they're
They're
very
watchable.
good. They're
Yeah.
watchable. And someone recommended this episode as one of those episodes
Interesting.
that's right up there, and maybe that prejudiced me against it, like right off the bat.
Right.
But this
You're
happened-
like, okay, impress me, season
right.
22.
Come on, give me what you got. And then I watched it, and it was just. It's not the worst episode ever, but it is emblematic in every way of how far The Simpsons has fallen. If I watched this if it was not The Simpsons, if it was the Thompsons, and I watched it, I'm like, I have no reason ever to watch this show. Like it's not great. We were watching it, and there were a few gags. We each laughed out loud 2 or 3 times.
Sure, it's not an unfunny episode,
Right.
but I think you're absolutely dead on that. It's got a lot of post-classic
Yeah.
problems. We will get in depth on those.
I've said this a few times, but even like our 5 least worst episode ever, our top 5 best episodes, I could live without ever seeing again. Because anytime somebody tells me, oh, there's still some good ones in there, they're watchable, and like our 5 least worst episodes aren't bad episodes, but I feel like they're not even in the same
Yeah,
ballpark
right.
as season 1 to 8.
And that, and that's fine. Look, what Yankees team is ever going to compare to 1927? It doesn't mean that you can't have fun.
Yeah.
But you still expect the Yankees to maybe win 90 games a year,
Yep,
and if they're hitting 60, like, oh, they won 60 games out of 162. Come on.
That's a great analogy, but unfortunately we have to talk about this Montreal Expos episode.
I don't understand sports, but this is very fun. I'm enjoying myself.
Me like balls.
Me like balls. Me Jack.
Oh wait, is this a different podcast?
This is
than I thought it
Me
was?
Like
Me like
Balls.
balls.
Let me pull off my pants.
Oh boy. Get comfy, everybody. We like balls.
And that's our show. Okay, so with all of that out of the way, I think it's time for a patented Wecap.
Oh boy.
Okay.
We need a Wecap jingle. Like I'm on a.
Is that it?
That's it. Get that drop.
Here we're doing a recap.
There you go.
I like it. A little Motown vibe, little disco.
Motown Philly's back again.
Wecap's Philly is back again. I just said what you said, and I replaced one of the words.
This is quick becoming the theme of this episode.
More like it's quick becoming the theme of this episode.
Oh Lord, oh Lord.
Hello.
Let's get into that Wecap, why don't we? More like let's get into that B-cap, why don't we? I don't know what that is.
I don't know. Beecap. It's a hat full of bees.
That's $1 million
Barb, they
idea.
shoot bees at you.
So this will all be cut.
Or will it?
Or will it? Sometimes you surprise me, and me saying this will all be cut is in the episode.
I leave that in to spite you.
I like it.
I do 90%.
A very adversarial relationship.
90% of my editing is spite, 10% for pacing.
Spite-based editing.
So if you need any spite-based editors, I freelance.
Yeah, that's great.
So,
So to recap this whole thing.
Steele, how about you do the honors? It's we should also mention this. I wanted to mention this. You have watched this episode, what, 8,
This
9
is
times?
I just watched it for the 8th time, yeah.
And this was our first time watching it, me and Dan. I've definitely never seen this one before.
Yeah, no, I had never seen it either, and that was one of the questions I said I'll save for air. Why have you watched this episode 8 times?
Well,
are you just very thoroughly preparing for this episode?
I was invited onto this podcast
That's true.
by these two handsome gentlemen. And
Those were our booking producers.
And they and I wanted to be like, I'm up on my Simpsons knowledge because one of them does
Yeah.
like Simpsons trivia, and I'm like,
true.
I don't want to like come off like some kind of schlub. So I came with like pages of notes. I watched it 7 times.
Yeah, you are our most prepared guest ever, I think.
I mean, you don't really do much in your spare time,
Yeah,
so
right.
I can see
Right.
why you had the time to do it.
Right.
You're very, very lethargic lifestyle.
But the other thing is, I've written episodes of animated television before, and I was trained as a television writer, and I've worked on a lot of different television programs. So, I wanted to part of the process when you go and you write for a show or you work on a show, you have to watch the show not just to pick up on like the standard beats, like who's the main character, blah 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 blah, but also the subtle nuances. What's what the themes are that they come back to over and over again. The primary, secondary, and tertiary moments, the things you need to avoid. So when I wanted to watch the show, I wanted to say, okay, first impression for me, I watched it, a while ago, and it was bad. So I'm like, maybe I'm going to go in this, try to unprejudice myself. And then I watched it. And I'm like, okay, maybe I got it wrong a second time. So I'm going to go in and watch it again. And then I kept watching it because I was hoping that I could pull, something out of there that would really sing. And also because I wanted to get past like the funny jokes, because there are some funny jokes in there.
there are, yeah.
But I wanted to not just like remember those funny gags, because they're always going to be funny gags. They're funny writers on The Simpsons, and they do there are a lot of funny visual cues. The first part of the episode has an Itchy and Scratchy that we all kind of like chuckled at.
Yeah. We'll talk in depth about that, but
yeah, so we're actually in a couple of writers groups together.
Yeah.
Steele, you're very good at editing yourself and killing your darlings and bringing it down. So I want to see, can you do a recap of
Yes.
this episode that has a very amorphous story? Can you do it within 90 seconds?
Within 90 seconds, that will be
Go!
kind of hard. All right, here we go. So we open up with a brief Itchy and Scratchy moment that leads into an advertisement that Krusty does for this kind of doll that Maggie really wants to complete her set. It's a kind of one of those, like, what is it, Little Miss Must Have or something like that. It's the baby in a 5-part series.
Baby Must Have, yeah.
Very much akin to The Simpsons themselves. There's father, there's mother, there's sister, there's brother, there's baby. So they have to go out to this gas station in the middle of nowhere, and to get it, they have to pay for gas. And it turns out that it's a random chance. You might get Baby Must Have, but of course it's so rare.
a blind box.
Yes,
they call them in the biz.
Indeed.
In the box biz. In a gas station promotional biz.
45
This
seconds left.
is all in your time.
Yeah,
by
thank
the
you
way.
very much. I'm going to cut you off right there. So Homer decides to spend over $2,000 worth of gas to try and pick it up. Doesn't get it, so they drive home the long way, and they happen to go through Marge's old neighborhood where they find her old House. And then after impressing themselves upon the new owner, they get inside and find some old stuff of hers where it turns out she was actually really, really smart in high school up until she met Homer, which distresses Lisa because she feels she's on a similar track. So after some advice from Homer, which is to ignore everything and try and just throw out all distractions. No, that's not what happens. He says eventually it's going to happen to you regardless of what you do. And Lisa says, no, I'm going to, cut out all my distractions, including her sax.
You have
and try
10 seconds left.
Try to...
I was actually timing you.
I wasn't, but I don't care.
Just going to double down on her investiture in education, which turns out to be not enough. So she tries to join an academy. After Marge finds out that she doesn't want to be like her, there's some family drama. But Marge eventually is able to get Lisa into this academy by washing all of the laundry for the academy.
Working her ass off.
Yeah, working her ass off. Very much akin to Lisa's pony. God, I didn't want to insult the episode right off the bat, but there it is.
This episode sucks. There, it's out of the way. It's done.
But then Lisa, after discovering that, realizes she can't go through with it because of the sacrifice.
It's killing her mother.
Yeah, it's killing her mother. Meanwhile, there's a B story in which Bart fights Nelson for the right to bully, but he doesn't want to be a bully, and that's kind of the story right there.
Yeah, but there's some kind of law of coincidences.
Right, and it happens multiple times.
Bart keeps accidentally beating Nelson. Okay, so first things first.
I haven't even first things first.
Oh, you have
First things first.
I have a zero. I have a zero issue before we have a first thing.
Yeah.
I just want to say this episode, more than I think any other episode we've seen, is Simpsons Remix Theater. Like this is like at least 5 episodes we've already seen already, thrown into a blender and chopped up. You got
I would
Lisa's
love to
Pony.
watch Simpsons Remix Theater.
I
feel like Comedy Central would do it.
But like Bart the General is the clear influence of the B plot here.
You
and
made
then
me
you have,
bleed my own blood.
I thought Bart was going to actually say that to Nelson when he punches Nelson in the face, because it's the exact same beat. Lisa's Pony, because you have Marge working hard for Lisa's affection and actually taking on a second job. You got Lisa the Simpson, which is when Lisa realizes the exact same plot happened with Homer, where Homer was smart and then became an idiot.
First he was as smart as a monkey. Now he's as dumb as a chimp.
You've had a few episodes with fancy smarts people schools.
Yeah,
Bart the Genius. And
Homer is another one where you find out that Homer was
right,
smart.
Homer's smart, except he's got a crayon in his brain.
which directly negates Homer the Simpson.
Yeah. Not a tight continuity.
I mean, Lisa the Simpson, yeah.
Not a tight continuity.
Anyway, so
that was the zero
So that
issue.
was zero things first. First things second.
Yeah, good.
So
As always, first thing second.
No, the couch gag. So was Evil Knievel, or was it?
It was Captain Lance
It was
Murdoch,
Captain
my
Lance
friend.
Murdoch. So he jumps over them. Nice, simple couch gag. I like him when they're short and sweet. We haven't quite seen anything like this before. I thought it was perfect until Steele, who had watched it many, many times, pointed out just how poorly animated it was.
Yeah.
Basically, he crashes. Lance Murdoch crashes out of frame, and his helmet rolls across the room, which is a funny little beat, but it doesn't.
It doesn't roll. It just kind of glides.
Slides, yeah.
Which
and then
is
it
odd.
slides back and forth a couple times to, that it's rocking, but it doesn't work.
Basically, it's missing all of the frames of it rolling, so it looks. It's almost like when you try to film a helicopter and you're at the same frame rate as the blades, and the blades are just kind of stationary.
That's a relatable premise for our listeners. You guys ever try to film a helicopter? You know how those blades are
I
stationary?
take a walk every lunch break along New York Harbor where
film
I work.
all the helicopters.
And we have lots of helicopters, and every once in a while we get like ospreys and some like really creepy ones with giant machine guns on them. And every once in a while I will just film one just in case that one decides to just start shooting everybody, and I could submit it as evidence.
You want to be the guy with the news footage.
I want to sell it. I want to sell the misery of all these innocent victims.
You're Jake
to
Gyllenhaal in
TMZ. I haven't seen it.
I haven't seen it either, actually.
But he's a good-looking man. I'll take it.
There you go.
I'm also Bubble Boy, and the son from City Slickers 2.
Yes.
Legend of Curly's Gold.
And you're looking for the Zodiac Killer.
And I was almost Spider-Man. So.
But you're the Prince of Persia.
So.
Etc.
Third
Jake
thing
Gyllenhaal.
second. The animation was terrible. I wanted to get your opinion, Steele, on just HD era animation, and we've talked on the show a few times about basically it's missing frames, I think, is the issue.
It's all 3D animated now. It's not the traditional hand drawn for a number of reasons. It's not. I like the animation in and of itself. For me, it's not the animation, although obviously there is a lot of charm to the
old hand-drawn stuff. Yeah,
hand-drawn stuff.
Absolutely.
That might be rose-colored glasses. You know, I'm willing to give that. I don't have a problem with the animation per se. It's that it's so slick, and it just doesn't. It just feels cold, you know.
I totally agree, and I thought this episode in particular just looked excessively bland. It's hard for something to be extremely bland, but this one was it. Like, where it was just, there were no visually interesting shots, there were no interesting animation moments. It's just like Homer walks in and has a conversation.
There was one that I liked that you liked too. There's a point at which Marge flips a toaster, and it reveals Homer with the door open, flossing his teeth while going to the bathroom.
That was fun,
and that was about it. You know, almost everything else, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. Technically, it just doesn't
I've been
inspire.
lately calling it. I don't know why, but I noticed the last few episodes. I kind of like this analogy. I call it Judd Apatow directing, and I'm a fan of Judd Apatow.
Right.
But his directing,
he's not visually
it's not bad, but basically he just turns the camera on and lets him riff.
Yeah.
He doesn't put any thought, or it doesn't seem like he puts any thought into how can I frame this joke. In what way can I frame it that would maximize the humor? Whereas, like, you take an Edgar Wright.
That's exactly what I was going to say. He's not like Edgar Wright, where there's jokes in the visual presentation of what's happening.
Apatow turns on the camera, and that's what I see most of these Simpsons episodes. Whereas I can think of a number of classic episodes, and we've pointed out ones that we've covered, where the direction, the shot they choose, the angle they choose, actually enhances
the jokes or whatever. This episode in particular, there were a lot of things that felt like movie parodies that didn't make any sense.
Jumping through the window by Homer, you know.
I don't know what that was even a parody of. Like, there's a slow motion scene with him and Lisa running in slow mo, and then he just jumps out a window and lands in a pool. And it's not funny; it just happens.
And the worst, even during the classic episodes, the worst movie parodies were the parodies that had no context whatsoever. That didn't move the plot forward. Didn't make a funny joke.
Stopped everything cold.
Right. You know, the best ones were when Homer's running after Ned Flanders with the two putt-putt dolls, and he's trying to slash at him, and he gets thrown off. Oh, I guess he didn't see me. You know.
Yeah, that's great. I always think of the Indiana Jones opening where Bart goes into Homer's room.
No.
That's great. What a perfect way to start the episode.
I almost created a Tumblr a couple months ago. I was watching it, and it was just so good that for 2 days, I just started tweeting random frames. I would literally just
from that scene.
Just pick a random frame because every single frame of that sequence is brilliant. And it's exactly the opposite of what I'm talking about with this Judd Apatow stuff. And I would literally just pick a random frame and post it every couple hours on Twitter. Yeah. And every frame was just hilarious.
Part of that might come down to the cost because it was so expensive to draw that animation.
I'm sure.
They had to plan out literally every camera move, every flash, everything that you could put on. Not that they can't do that now. They don't do that now.
Yeah.
But it's much more efficient, so they don't have to.
That effort shows in the classic episodes. Like, you can go on FrinkyAct.com and look at just stills of episodes and laugh. And I don't think you could do that with an episode like this from like season 22 or beyond.
FrinkyAct, which is a great site, and we certainly use it plenty for social media. And Ion Springfield was doing it the hard way back in the day.
Yeah.
FrinkyAct goes up to like season 18, I think. And basically, you're right, because if you go and honestly, I don't even think they need to go that far.
No.
If you go further, you lose that, where you just have frames, you just have these individual frames that aren't funny.
Yeah.
And that would be fine if the jokes themselves are able to carry, and that's the issue with my issue with this episode. There have been episodes of The Simpsons that are very plot light. You know, it's just a bunch of gags strung together, particularly when you have a really strong B story and it's almost a two-hander going back and forth. And in this one, but for me, there weren't enough jokes to pull this off. And things just kind of happened.
This is an episode of television that feels like an episode of television.
Yes.
Like, you can see what they're trying to do, and it doesn't work all the time, and you can see the plot lines not congealing.
Yeah, think of a Simpsons episode as a house, and you have to build that wooden skeleton. I'm not a carpenter. I'm not a constructionist.
A frame, I think they might call it.
A constructioner. A carpet man.
You know, Jesus was a constructioner, Jack. A carpet man.
Anyway, you got that skeletal structure. Mm-hmm. Now that wood can be like Steele says. It could be really strong jokes and gags, and then
Yeah.
you build the rest of the episode on that. Or the wood could be story, and you can build the episode on that, hang the jokes off of a stronger story, or an emotional arc. But
Yeah.
you have to. It's got to be one of those things,
Right, you need
and then when you
something.
have an episode that doesn't have that, and you're basically just building out of mud and sand.
Yeah.
Rainstorm's going to come, and your Simpsons episode's going to collapse and drown the baby.
Well, let's take a look at the B plot in this, because this is kind of emblematic of that.
Yeah, let's do B plot first.
Because-
four
yeah.
things first.
Well, which B plot? Because there's the whole Maggie B plot to start
No,
with.
no, no. That
yeah.
doesn't
That's
even
the cold
count.
open.
That the cold open
It's
and
not
the
even
tag.
a cold open.
Right.
It's I don't know what it is.
Just
It's a
there.
non sequitur A plot.
I'll get into that. I'll beat that to death with my shoe.
So you're
because
you're referring to the Nelson Bart plot.
The Nelson
You're
Bart
beat
plot.
that with the other shoe first.
Yes.
So let's talk about that.
Well, this is just disappointing because it's the same beat repeated. So the basic plot is that after Marge finds her stuff, Bart takes her old Sonny and Cher kite out to school and kind of kite surfs in the mud. And he accidentally sprays Nelson with mud. Nelson gets angry, and in his haste to escape, Bart accidentally knocks Nelson on his butt and makes him bleed his own blood.
Yeah.
And everybody cheers because now Bart is the new bully of the school. And then this beat is repeated 3 or 4 times thereafter, in which Bart tries to not be the bully of the school and continuously knocks Nelson into lockers, hits him with a tether ball.
Yeah. But it's interesting. You're saying that he becomes the bully of the school and he's trying not to be, but even that's not really what
no,
happens.
it's
What
not.
happens is he's trying to be like, Nelson, I didn't mean to hit you, and then it just accidentally keeps happening again and
And
again.
again.
That's not
And
a
again and
story.
again and again.
And
And
again
again
and
and
again.
again.
It's not a story.
Right,
There's no progression at
right.
all.
The stronger choice would have been people in the hallway being terrified of
Right.
Bart.
Which is where I thought it was going to go.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I
Right.
don't know if we've ever
And
seen
then
that before.
I really like this idea. I don't think I've ever. There's going to be 2 times I bring this up. And I've said this before in the show. I'm always impressed when I see a story that hasn't been done before on The Simpsons.
Mm-hmm.
Usually they muck it up, but every once in a while we do see a plot. It's like, oh, that's new. That's not like an amalgam of others or
You get
just
to
a straight up
600
repeat.
episodes.
Yeah.
And that's also, I don't fault them for that. After 600 episodes,
right.
how many times can you tell a
Exactly,
new story?
but this is kind of a new idea we haven't seen, and it's a fun visual gag generator where Bart he keeps accidentally beating up Nelson by coincidence. Kind of like a Naked Gun type of physical humor.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great idea. And if you're going to do, say it's a B plot and you want 4 quick scenes, 4 beats spread throughout the episode, I'm fine with you doing another coincidence gag. He accidentally knocks him in the locker.
Yeah.
But like we're saying, there has to be some kind of story progression with each beat.
Yeah.
So I love this idea where he becomes the bully, and now he has to defend his honor, or he accidentally bullies another kid,
Right.
a nerd.
And each time
it's
he's trying to
another
say, I'm not
coincidence.
like that,
Yeah,
and he smacks
exactly,
Nelson,
yeah.
and he terrifies the school
Yeah.
to the point where at
That-
the end,
that's a story.
he has to go to Nelson and say, like, look, I can't handle this bully responsibility
It's too
anymore.
much, yeah.
That's like such a better story. And that took us, 2 minutes?
Yeah.
No.
To break that?
Steele is a magician. But yeah, and you get to eat it too, because you have that story, you have something, it's interesting to watch, and you still get to have the fun coincidental beat 'em ups each beat.
Yeah. I don't know why they didn't do that, and it was just bizarre. And
Well, we're going to get into this in a second. Part of it is the 4-act structure that they have. You really only have a few moments in each act for the B story, because the A story is so big that it
Right.
has to take over. So it's
Yeah.
the average act is 4.5 minutes long. If it's a 20-minute,
But you can
stories.
progress a story
Yes.
one beat at a time. Seinfeld did it all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Classic Simpsons
you can
did
do it one day at a time, like Netflix does.
Well, there's a moment in Act 2 which I brought up when we were watching this. After Lisa, and Marge talk about how she's disappointed in Marge, she doesn't want to turn out like that. Bart is there, and he's going to school, and he
Yeah.
gets his lunch, and he has a couple gags with Lisa. He doesn't reference his story.
No, not at all.
There is a point at which Marge could make a comment about how she's hearing all these things, from school and what's going on, and Bart can make, some kind of deferral, or
Yeah.
Lisa can be scared of him about what's happening. There can be some kind of back and forth. I don't, whatever. But nothing happens. He's just there
Yeah.
as a service to the A
In
story.
fact, this story does resolve by Marge
Yes.
finally having a heart-to-heart in the car with him. She goes, well, why don't you just compliment him and maybe you can win him over? And I was thinking the whole time, because Marge is currently going through her issues with
Right.
Lisa.
Yeah,
Right.
I think you're going to say exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah, maybe something she says is what makes her realize, oh, I've been handling this Lisa situation wrong, and she learned something. Or You take her out completely. You have Homer in there. That way, Homer gets his scene, and then maybe it really doesn't have much to do with the Marge Lisa A plot anyway.
Yeah.
You take him out of that, but he still gets a nice scene with Bart.
Yes.
Share the wealth basically with the characters.
See, I was thinking this episode is kind of all over the place because there's not really one point of view character, and it should
I
be
wanted
Marge.
to bring that up with the B plot. I want to bring up: is this a Lisa episode or is this a Marge episode?
Right. My thinking to kind of tie all these plot threads together is you make it a Marge episode. It's from Marge's perspective, and Lisa's pulling away as Bart needs her, and she finds she's able to help Bart, and maybe that encourages her to like try and help with Lisa or something like that.
Yes, but I mean that's also one of the weak parts of this episode. They have it all there.
Yeah.
They have it. She goes to. So the first. This is where I'm going to kill that cold open because it's absolutely worthless.
Sure.
They drive out to the middle of nowhere to get gas. Homer spends over $2,000, to get all these things, and it doesn't work. As opposed to just pulling a South Park and giving the guy the money to get, the
Or
doll.
pulling a real life, which is what you would do. Like if you really wanted that, you just go. You find a guy who doesn't give a shit, and you're like, "Can I just
How I
look
got
through
my
the boxes?"
Nintendo 64.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. eBay. Instead of that, why didn't they have Marge watching TV? They're watching TV at the beginning of the episode anyway, and it turns out that her old neighborhood is going to be demolished, and she wants to go and either save it or do something. She winds up there at the old house, and she starts reliving these memories. Lisa's there, to see this progression, and while Marge is reliving these moments, like how did I turn out the way I did, Lisa's discovering that that's going on. And instead of it being Homer, the real reason is that Marge went downhill. She had kids, and so she started sacrificing her own life to give her kids a better life for her, which allows a much better progression for Lisa, because then she can realize at the end of this episode that the reason Marge has fallen off is because she's tried to give Lisa everything that she never had as a kid. And then you have pathos, and you can throw all the jokes you have in there, but you don't have that worthless cold open that takes up like 3 minutes of the beginning of a 5-minute first act.
So, Steele, you clearly never watch these post-classic Simpsons because they never have pathos and any theme or story or anything of that kind of stuff.
I think you were meant to say dated pop culture reference.
Yes.
Oh, God.
They should have thrown Cosmic Wars in there, or maybe a pun about how women be shopping.
So let's wrap up the B plot real quick,
Yeah.
because we're already getting well into the A plot.
Yep. And just one last thing about the Beast plot, that the tag at the end where they come in and they're trashed
They're
on
drunk
apple
on
juice.
box.
Yeah.
At 4:15 in the morning. What is going on with that?
I don't know. I mean, I think that ties into
Arrested
the other
Development
plot.
did it already, where Buster gets drunk on
Party's
juice.
gonna have unlimited juice. It's gonna be off the hook. Off the hook. And then he later has a hook for a hand.
Hey, yeah,
Look at that.
Yeah, they
I'm a monster.
oh, monster.
What a great show.
It really is. So
Whatever.
Yeah, Steele brought up a few times. Dozen episodes this one's cribbed from, but Lisa's Pony's a big one.
Yeah.
And Lisa's Pony, would you call that a Lisa episode? Her name's in the title. Or would you call it a Homer episode?
It's a Homer episode.
I would say it's a Homer episode, yeah.
So is this a Marge episode or a Lisa episode? We've established it's not really
It's
either.
not either,
But
yeah.
are we on a consensus it should be a Marge episode?
Yes, I think so.
Because the idea is Lisa calling out
Because-
like, Marge, you failed at life.
Look, especially if you want to contrast it to Lisa the Simpson. That was an episode where Lisa finds out her father used to be smart, her brother used to be smart, and Grandpa used to be smart. They're all becoming idiots. She's worried it's coming to her too.
Right.
You don't want to redo the same exact thing, so have it from Marge's perspective, where Lisa is growing up and doesn't want to be like her mother. That's not the same story.
There's also a really strong
There's good stuff to that.
drama to the idea of your kid calling you out and being, and I think the
Yeah.
Simpsons have done this before
They
too.
probably have.
Where they're basically like, you're a failure, and I don't want to be like you. Can you imagine telling your parents? And really, every at least in America in the last couple of generations, maybe not this one anymore, but the idea was that you were supposed to be better than your parents. You're supposed to. Each generation was supposed to improve.
Yeah.
What about Lisa's Angel? When she
Yes.
has those great
Yeah,
moments.
Lisa the skeptic.
Yeah, Lisa the skeptic.
Yeah.
And they're, and she and her mother have that moment in the kitchen where she says that she pities her, and then at the end, their hands are held in really tight, and even though they disagree, they have, they've come together for that one moment. Like that's a great moment.
Yeah.
That is a great moment. Although Marge is kind of it's a little too condescending to Lisa, like, you were old man, pretty hard there. I guess
But
you
she
do
was
believe in
right,
God.
Dan, because there is a God.
Yeah. We all
We all know.
We all know he's out there watching us.
You're speaking to the Quaker in this group, so yeah.
Anyway,
The Itchy and Scratchy that this episode it literally opens with show, which I love. Get right to it.
Yeah.
I thought
Hoop
it was.
screams. Yes.
I don't need to get into details, and maybe you guys do, but I just thought it was it would have been perfect in season 5. It was just a great Itchy and Scratchy.
It was great. It was well animated. I thought it was really funny. It's called Hoop Screams. You have this whole thing where he chops Scratchy's head off and uses it as a basketball, and then uses it as a net, and they chop another guy's head off, and they pour his blood on the coach like the Gatorade thing.
Yeah,
that was disgusting and funny.
Apparently, The
It was great.
Simpsons just turned 30 very recently, and Fresh Air, our podcast nemesis, Terry Gross.
We'll get you one day.
We'll get you, Terry. She did
Not threatening
They
you.
did a compendium. We're gonna kill you.
No, not that. We're gonna kill you in the ratings and the downloads
With a knife.
with a knife of listenership, cutting through the treacle
Until you're dead.
until you're dead.
Anyway, they had a compendium of all her interviews over the years. There's a great one with Alf Clausen about his music cues and parodying movies. And then another one was Al Jean and Mike Reese. And Al Jean he said the writers would actually would take them all day to come up with an Itchy and Scratchy title, and then the gags would just write themselves, and they'd crank it out in 5 minutes.
I'm sure.
So I'm surprised they haven't done Hoop Screams yet, but it was great.
No, it was great. Great open.
So then Krusty says, this is a Krusty Show. It's sponsored by Texon, which is a PAL port of, I guess,
Texaco
and
and
Exxon.
Yeah.
Fine. And this starts, this goes back to my other point. So I really appreciate when Simpsons do plots we haven't seen before. Has there been a Simpsons Jingle All the Way plot before? Because that's a very well-known middle-class Americana searching for that toy of the season. You can't get it. You know, in the 80s, it was the Cabbage Patch Kids, Nintendo 64, Tickle Me Elmo. I can't think of another example where Homer or Marge was desperately trying to get a toy for one of the kids.
Yeah, I'm not thinking of one immediately. I feel like there may be some episodes I haven't seen that are. I feel like there's a Beanie Baby episode.
Oh,
There is a
Did we watch
Beanie
one?
episode.
We may have watched it actually.
There's a Furby episode.
I think we watched it. Yeah, the
There's-
Funzo one.
Yeah, Funzo,
Okay,
right?
so they have done it before.
But not in that exact manner that you're talking about.
This is more like a collectible thing, and you need to have the whole set. And Maggie would be upset if she didn't have the baby because she's a baby.
My point is, I feel like there was something there, and Steele's
Agreed.
right in everything he said. Basically, the whole first 5 minutes was a waste, and the end is a waste, and it's a shame because I wish
the
they
middle's
would
a
have
waste.
saved it for something fuller or used it better in this capacity. Another thing, when you were just talking, I realized Maggie really wants this baby. I didn't quite realize until you said it out loud. It's a 5-family set. The dad, the brother. I like that she really wants it because it's the Maggie
her.
of the group.
Yeah.
I thought that was there's like lots of
That's
little
clever. That's
clever
good.
things here, and it's a shame they just tack it on and
Well, yeah. I mean, I thought that was an interesting conceit for a plot, and then it just goes nowhere.
It goes nowhere.
Dies
Yeah.
immediately, like within the first 3-4 minutes of the episode.
As soon as they go back to Marge's neighborhood, which is a coincidence, by the way. Hey,
Yeah.
why are we here?
yeah.
Right.
All of that is to get them to the neighborhood.
And also, they pull up to Marge's old house, and there's a woman who lives there who sells dead rabbits.
Right.
And she's like kind of not all there, and
Yeah,
like
and
a
she
weird.
looks vaguely like Patty Smith.
Yeah, she didn't look like a Simpsons character. She looked like a guest star animated as a Simpsons character. It was weird.
There's also a great cutaway that illustrates the lousiness of some of these jokes, where they cut to the old Phillips station that's now been turned into a froyo place.
Yeah.
And Patty
Stop and go Gogurt.
Yeah,
What was
something
it?
like that. Yeah, and Patty and Mo are on a date, and she says, "It's the cheapest date I've ever been on." He's like, "No, it's not a cheap date. I'm just embarrassed to be seen with you." The joke ends there.
Yeah.
Then he adds, "There's a big difference." That doesn't add anything to the joke. It's just
Extra B.
Yeah. As we've seen many times, particularly at the end of this first act, in which you have Superintendent Chalmers show up for no reason whatsoever for 20 seconds.
I don't even know what that was. That defies explanation. But
There's a chance we might release as a Patreon exclusive the audio of us watching this episode in real time, and you will hear a 30-second period of befuddlement when that scene happens.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of dead silence there. We're just watching this like, what? What?
Yeah.
What?
Earlier on, I think it's when they first pull up to Marge's old house, there's this weird part where Homer is talking to Bart. Lisa says something about, I hope to one day go back to my old house and see what happened, which is kind of interesting and thematic with the whole, like, going back to your roots type of thing. There's not really anything done with it. But Bart says, I'm going to keep living in the basement. It's going to be a swinging bachelor pad. And Homer says, I'm going to be buried out in the garden. And then Bart's like, can I dig you up on Halloween? And Homer goes, only if you don't dress me like a woman. The fuck was that?
This was one of those things
What a
where
weird, like...
Yeah.
maybe it could have been funny, maybe it couldn't have been, but it stopped everything cold so
Yeah.
much that I just took me out of it.
There were too many levels of strangeness. There's Homer not wanting to be dressed like a woman, which is strange, and Bart digging up the corpse of his father is a little bit too strange to be a comedy
dig
joke.
up corpses?
Not
I-
only
I
I dig up corpses, but not that I'm related to. That's the
okay.
difference.
If his father's dead, why is he living in the basement?
Yeah, I don't know.
I guess Marge
I guess.
still is there.
Because he doesn't like the sun? I don't know. Who knows with Bart?
Yeah.
But it was just a really
it
weird
raises
stuff to
too
think
many
cold.
questions that it's like season 5 of Lost. It raises more questions than it answers.
Right. Well, like,
They
the
were all
gas.
answered.
Not to keep coming back to that cold open, but it's so bad. But like later on, they're like, "Oh, we can't afford to send you to this academy. We don't have any money." And like, as opposed to when you could spend $2,000.
But
But
they don't even attempt to tie the things together
Right,
and say,
right.
"Oh, we spent $2,000
Oh,
on
that would've
gas
been great,
before."
yeah.
Just a token acknowledgement of that's how the episode started.
Can you dip
There's
into my
not that.
look? Just dip into my college fund. I'd rather go to here than go to a good college. Sorry, we used the college fund
Yeah,
on the
we
gas.
spent
Right.
it on gas to get the baby that we didn't even get.
Yeah, that's a shame. When that crazy lady, which again, it's so weird that they came up with this character and for her to not do anything outside of this one scene. But she says something like, "Okay, I'll let you in the house, but only if I don't have to feed the big guy."
Oh, yeah,
And like they all have some friendly laughter, and Homer's like, "No deal." And it's actually kind of an over-explainy whisper.
Yeah.
No deal. But
Yeah.
the sudden turn of like Homer doing the friendly laughter to no deal, and on the premise of he
It
will
wasn't
not
bad.
give up food.
Yeah.
I thought that might have been my heartiest laugh of the episode.
yeah, you did laugh.
Yeah,
pretty hard.
I had a nice
You can listen
chuckle.
to it on a Patreon exclusive.
If you want
That appeals to Jack.
if you want to hear me turn into Santa Claus,
Oh, what a joke that's been good.
this makes my good list.
There was also another line with that weird woman who said, "Oh, Marge, I had this box of your stuff in the attic, and I've been tempted to go through it many times, and I did."
Yeah, that wasn't bad.
I kind of
yeah.
like
Yeah.
that.
And I did. In that box of her stuff, there was one visual gag, not physical gag. They're cartoons. They're not physical at all.
Wait, what?
They don't exist in real
Well,
space.
I mean, they exist in the town of Springfield, Jack.
Of course.
Which is real.
Which is real.
It's real.
It's in the state of.
Yeah,
Is that-
it's in the state of, it's in the United
Illitucky.
States.
So the visual gag that I liked was Marge says, "Oh, this is me in scrunchies." That never quite worked, and it's just her hair in scrunchies. I
That
liked
was
it.
okay.
I liked it.
Didn't do anything for
Not
me.
every gag needs to be like a grand slam, and I like, in fact, sometimes when you have like those kind of like kind of rueful
Yeah,
chuckles.
exactly, yeah.
You know that's fine. You
I don't
could,
have
you
to
know.
be Santa Claus 365 days a year.
Right,
You know,
no.
maybe just one night a year I could be Santa Claus.
Really, that's the only night anyone needs to be Santa Claus is one night a year.
And then the rest I'll just
the
be
rest
a
are just
chuckler.
kicking it back and chuckling it up.
One of my favorite moments of that in an early Simpson episode, where with Bart and falling in love with Laura, he goes to talk to his grandfather about about what he should do.
Yep.
And he goes, "Bart, you remembered my birthday."
Yeah.
He goes, "I sure did, and here's the bus schedule."
Wow, fits right in my pocket.
Right, like that moment, like it's funny, like we're laughing
Yeah,
about
that's
it. Like,
great.
at that moment, it's not like laugh out loud, but it's like,
He gave him the bus schedule.
yeah, right.
This is greatest comedy ever.
And then it builds into, his grandfather talking about how, I was in love with the oldest woman.
Yeah, right. I wore a 15-pound beard of bees for that woman, but it was never enough.
Right. And, you don't need that all the time. But here,
No.
just so many of those.
This could have
Yeah.
used something
Needed
more.
that skeletal carpet man
Yeah, it
structure.
really did. It needed a carpet man.
I need a carpet man.
But then it's at this moment that the A story, quote unquote, kicks in,
Yeah.
where Lisa discovers that her
Right.
mother used to be really, really smart. She'd won a science award. She wrote an A triple plus history paper.
So that was funny where Lisa's looking at Marge's old tests and Lisa's like, "Wow, Marge or Mom, you used to do really good in school." And she just goes, "Oh, that's ancient history." And then Lisa pulls out her ancient history exam that
yeah.
she had got an A++ on. I thought that was a funny turn of
nice
phrase.
little.
Not much. It's not.
it doesn't need
not
to
a
be
slam
amazing.
dunk.
Right.
But
It's not Christmas Eve. You don't have to be
yeah.
Santa.
It was a little baseball hit. Is that what they call them in baseball?
They call them little
hits?
baseball
A
hits.
little baseball hit.
LBHs.
LBHs.
I
Yeah.
hit a little baseball hit.
Somebody's been reading his 538.
That's right.
Yeah. So now
Apparently Hillary Clinton's going to win the election.
Ooh,
There you
hey-o.
Take that, Nate Silver.
he was our biggest fan, and now you've
Oh, sorry.
You're mocking
Alienated
me on
him.
We podcast.
so
Nate Silver here in studio. Stop mocking me.
next elevator.
going up here. 9 step. Okay, I'm sorry.
I can hear you do Droopy all day.
That's pretty funny. That's pretty good.
Yeah, so Lisa discovers, and she's shocked that Marge used to be this brilliant student, and then she does some 538 action, right? She maps out.
That's in the next act. Well, then first she goes to Skinner.
She goes to Skinner, which was
Right.
very confusing to me because she says, "Principal Skinner, what was my mom like when she went to school? Was Skinner the principal when
He's Strickland from Back to the Future.
Yeah.
This immortal principal.
with the time with the way that the time dilation is now
Sure.
worked.
Yeah,
you
there's
know,
hyper time in the Simpsons universe.
Time has grown soft.
right. Which okay, you're on the air for 26, 27, 28 seasons.
Yeah.
It's going to happen. I don't necessarily begrudge them that, but it is. You're right. It is a moment.
It's odd because you guys pointed out when I said this when we were watching it. Skinner was in Vietnam, so
Yeah.
he should be like 60, 70, 80, whatever the hell he is. I don't know how many years ago Vietnam
minimum.
was.
You see, if
He
he was,
should be 1,000 years old at this point.
we quote unquote pulled out in 74. I mean, there were still advisors thereafter.
My dad didn't
I
pull
never
out
pull
in
out, bro.
84.
Hey, Jackie boy! I like to fuck at your mother.
Oh, jeez. And that's the last time we ever had the Jack's dad character in We Studios. It was a good run for 100 and odd episodes. You will be missed. Please enjoy next week. Dan's dad, the new character.
No, there was no. That will not be a
It
thing.
will be a thing.
So if
Hey, Danny boy!
if he was 18 in 74, at the absolute minimum, he would be born in 56, which means he'd be 61.
That's not
so
bad.
it's not
That's not bad.
terrible. It can be pulled off, but it's tight.
But here's the thing: I always assumed that Skinner was a contemporary of Marge and Homer.
I always pictured
pretty
him
much
a
the same
little bit
age.
older.
Maybe a little bit older. Like they're Homer's what, 38, 39?
Yeah.
Maybe
He-
Skinner
48,
is like
49.
that is old, but yeah.
I imagine him in
It
his
was weird.
late 40s, early 50s, like not so outside the realm, but definitely like the tail ends of like a Gen Xer or something
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
There's also been flashback episodes in the classic era where they implied Skinner was a little bit older.
Yeah.
This opens with a great gag. He's actually
Yes.
Windexing the trophy case in Springfield Elementary. By the way, so Marge went to Springfield Elementary, even though she's zoned, even though her part of town is apparently so far away within
Yeah, that they
Springfield
never visit.
she hasn't visited it since her childhood. But anyway,
Doesn't make a lot of sense, Simpsons writers.
so he's Windexing the trophy case, and he actually is admiring all the trophies in there because he's bought them from other cash-strapped schools.
Yeah.
And you look, and there's like Ogdenville
Yeah, no,
Elementary.
I liked that.
That
You
was
know,
funny.
the
I liked that a
Shelbyville,
lot.
they had
Yeah.
several Shelbyville
Yeah.
ones.
And
That
that's
was
like
good.
a classic, like Springfield second class.
Classic Springfield
joke.
Elementary
Yeah.
joke.
Yeah.
Yeah, just great.
Yeah, I loved it. But yeah, Lisa asks about Marge and that whole confusing thing. And then Principal or Superintendent Chalmers comes out. And I don't even know what he said, but there was this weird, like, 20-second... He said Skinner for sure. What, do you remember what else he said?
Skinner.
He just said
I've watched
Skinner
it 8
for 20
times, and I
seconds.
can't remember what it's about.
Yeah, it was just
At
like...
some point, he says, "No." He goes, you're the only one I can yell at. I can't yell at the teachers because of the teachers union, and I can't yell at the such and such.
I
And
fell
I
asleep.
like Willie.
That's
Yeah.
that's the problem. I
That-
fell
that's the
asleep
final
because it was
tag, yeah.
horribly boring.
What about Willie? I like Willie.
Yeah, it was whatever.
Post-classic Simpsons induced narcolepsy.
It was just like, guys, we need 25 more seconds. Just Superintendent Chalmers, get in there. Yeah, there you go.
But that's it feels like a gag. Like we're short on time. We need to add a little bit. But they've got
Yeah.
so many of those moments already. They have a long Itchy and Scratchy at the beginning, which is what they used to do with Itchy and Scratchy. If they didn't have enough time, they'd do one of those.
The entire episode felt like it was short for time
Yeah.
for like other things that were also short for
Your
time.
5-minute non sequitur first act, and
Very bizarre. Very bizarre.
Well, oh, look at you, strutting around like you're Toad of Toad Hall.
so Lisa's in her bedroom. Is this where she's mapping out? She's doing her Nate Silvering.
Yes. So she's
Act 2. Yep.
Maggie's in the. There's a gag I liked here. Maggie's got her Happy Little Elves, whatever the fuck it is.
Yeah.
Shoebox set with the missing baby and the other 4 characters.
Yeah.
And she's actually trying to replace the character with other toys. She puts in a transformer.
Yep.
She puts in a Slinky, and the Slinky goes away. I thought that was, again, it's not like a stop and laugh kind of gag, but I
No.
appreciated it, and I like that. Even though it was center frame for a while, not literally, it didn't stop the episode cold.
It
was
didn't.
just- it was just
Lisa was
there.
still doing stuff for her plot line, but I also liked that it was just a reference to the opening. Like, hey, we haven't totally forgotten about
Right.
it, even though they kind of really
and
did.
it didn't stop the episode cold. It didn't pan away. It was just, it was the right way to execute this
It was
gag.
efficient. Brad Bird,
Yes.
who once was the head, maybe the supervising animator, he was head of supervision at some point, who also went on to direct The Incredibles and Ratatouille.
Oh, yeah.
Mission
He is-
Impossible 4.
Yes,
best one.
indeed. And
The
tomorrow,
Iron Giant.
and Tomorrowland, which we'll not talk about. But he had a phrase, use every part of the buffalo, and that, you shouldn't let something just do one thing. There should always be multiple things going on that you can call back. And you watch The Incredibles, and there's an immense amount of information going on, and yet it moves, and it isn't, overly complex. You just are along for the ride. And then when you watch it again, you pick up more stuff that you missed, but it was subconscious in your mind. And that's what this scene is like. There are several things going on here at the same time. You hear Marge yell up at the kids. Like it feels like a world, and the rest of the episode just feels so static that it throws it into contrast.
Totally. Well, very well said.
And basically Lisa now realizes that the moment Marge stopped being smart and kind of started her decline, the rise and fall of the Marge Empire was Homer, when she met Homer.
Yeah, I didn't love that as like an idea.
Oh,
that,
really? Makes sense. He's a horrible person.
I prefer. I mean, you have Marge getting A's, and then all of a sudden Lisa finds a Scantron that Marge had filled out that was just a heart that said, "Who cares? I'm in love." I don't buy that.
Little on the nose.
Yeah, that just seemed a little too much for me.
They also struggled at the beginning of their marriage, like not to pull in
Right.
continuity that
Yeah.
whatever, but it's a missed opportunity, particularly with what happens later. Lisa goes to Homer to talk it out. She doesn't blame him; she blames her mother.
Yeah,
that seems like a missed beat. There's just so many things that could go somewhere, and it doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah. What did you guys think? So Lisa goes to talk to Homer about this, and Homer is sitting in the kitchen, and he takes Big League Chew and wraps it
Big
up.
League Chaw, I believe it said.
Oh,
Right?
it did it? Whatever the health word is.
Legally distinct from Big League Chew.
Big League Chew and a fruit roll up, and he makes like a candy cigar, and then he's like fake smoking it. Did you guys like that or what?
Yeah, I mean, it didn't ring bad. It just was. Yeah,
It was
This
kind
is
of there.
this is kind of like what you just said about using every part of the buffalo, where there's something there. It's just that it's like when you can use every part of the buffalo, but at some point you're gonna have to use the rectum, and it's not gonna be fun.
Yeah,
and this
I
was
mean,
them using the rectum.
You know what though? They had those photos of him like eating pizza, which made Marge laugh, and that ties in. If
Those
he'd
were
been
kind of funny. I kind of liked those.
If she had gone downstairs and he's doing that with pizza,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
he's trying pizza's out, and I'm gonna do it with Hot Pockets, and he burns himself.
Yeah.
Like, that would be a reference to that, and also confirm to Lisa my father isn't an idiot.
Right,
you
and
know?
hasn't
Pictures don't
changed.
lie. Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
and he's the same person he was when he was 16 or whatever.
Right, and she can be like, okay, I can't blame you. You just are who you
Yeah.
are. Why? What did my mother love about you so much that she gave up everything for?
Right.
Here's why I don't like it, because it implies that Marge gave up everything just because she fell in love with Homer, and I don't like that characterization of Marge.
I agree.
I don't think that makes sense. I don't
Marge
think
is-
that's who Marge is.
She's an incredibly complex
Yeah.
character, as is Homer.
Yeah.
The other problem with these later episodes, he's just an idiot, and that's not the case.
You nailed it.
He is dumb, but the problem is that he has a very unique outlook on the world that doesn't sync up with reality, which allows him to do things that other people can't, but also holds him back from other things. But yet he's still shown to be a very loving father, if sometimes abusive. And Marge, to that point, she is a complex character who loves her kids, who loves her husband, who isn't exactly in love with her life, but feels that this is my life, and I'm gonna do the best I can with it. And so when she eventually yells at Maggie for coming in with a saggy diaper,
with a big poopy diaper,
and I'm like, that just doesn't ring right,
Yeah.
Marge felt very off this episode.
Yeah.
I'll say that.
Agreed.
Yeah. So when Lisa's talking to Homer, he basically. So this is kind of another thing, actually. He equates Marge falling in love with him as a hobby. Mm-hmm. And eventually, something's gonna take over your life, and you're gonna get stupid. I don't really understand what Homer's point even was.
And I don't understand why Lisa doesn't just dismiss that right out of hand.
Yeah, instead she gets rid of everything in her room, and she's like, I can't have any hobbies if I want to be smart.
I don't know how this episode came about in the writer's room, but I really feel like they were so desperate to just get to the next scene where whatever thin filament would get them there, they would just latch on and go, okay, that's good enough. good enough.
It feels like it was written like at 4:00 on a Friday afternoon because they needed a script by 5.
Al Jean just comes in. Hey, where's that episode?
I mean, this could be an inventory episode. I mean, who knows? You know, they could have had like the bare bones of a script, and they were running behind. Like, we've got this, and we've got to do it. I mean, you know, there's a lot of time pressure for this. I think they only is it 22 episodes a season now. They used to do 26. You know?
Yeah, it ranges from 22 to like 26.
Okay,
But I think they're pretty set on 22 now.
Maybe that week they had a. They
all had diarrhea.
They all had diarrhea.
Why did we both go to the diarrhea
I
well?
actually went to their parents died, and I was like, that's
a
too
little
dark.
dark.
That's a little dark.
Let me go down to. Let me take it down a notch.
The Fox commissary served some bad chili, and everyone was laid up
Violent
with the poops.
diarrhea.
Violent, explosive diarrhea.
I'll take that over dead parents any day of the week.
Any day of the week, bro.
So then Lisa's like, all right, well, if this is what happened, I need to prevent that from happening to me.
Right.
What's my hobby? Which, again, weird that she...
well, it's there's just nothing connecting these concepts. Like, she throws out all of her things.
Yeah, so she realizes, she's like, well, I have jazz, and, you know, when does jazz ever ruin anybody's life?
Which I really like, actually. She throws her jazz.
Yeah, and she realizes that there's never been like a really successful jazz, you know, which is a joke, obviously.
That's a funny joke.
She hasn't seen La La Land, apparently.
That's true. Oh, Whiplash, even. It's a funny joke that's wasted in this episode because that could have been its own fucking plot line.
Lisa gives
something
up
about
jazz
or something. Like, why is that being brought into this episode where Marge was less intelligent after she
you
fell in
say
love?
it's being brought into this episode. It's literally like 5 seconds. Basically, she throws her saxophone out the window.
But you've already had Lisa have that realization that jazz leads to unhappiness.
Which it does, because it's terrible music.
I don't like jazz.
I actually
have zero
love
interest in
jazz.
It's my go-to writing music. It helps me tune out the horrible people that live in New York and that surround me at any given time.
Oh, God, I had a great New York moment when I was coming, and I stopped at Wendy's before I came in, and these two guys...
How early were you?
I was a little early. I wanted to give us some extra. Well, I didn't know. You know, it's fine. In any case, so there are two guys. One guy is ordering, and he's like, "Ralph, what do you want? Like, describe it to me."
I want 2 pieces of bread, some kind of cow meat in between.
No, but honestly, it was only like 3 or 4 seconds away from that, and he kept saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, Ralph. What sword do you want? Just tell me what it is. Come up here. I'm not going to yell at you anymore."
I just love Ralph. Describe it to me. Like, I imagine that guy is just in the bedroom, describe it to me.
That's going to be this when we become that, like the country goes down one more level. We're going to go from like Denny's picture menus to just describe it to me.
Yeah. Oh my God.
In GIF form, if possible.
Yeah.
So she throws the sacks out of the window, and Santa's little helper sticks his head in, and he bumps into a tree.
That was cute.
Nice little visual gag. Again, maybe we would have liked that even more we would have liked it even more if grounded in any kind of story and
Yeah.
whatever.
What about the scene in the bedroom where Homer and Marge are getting it on? No, where Homer tells Marge what Lisa had said to him.
Man, he fluctuates in intelligence from scene to scene all the time, and I don't like it. I don't mind it when it's episode to episode, if you have a dumb Homer and a smart Homer in certain episodes.
Yep.
But when it's scene to scene, it's very jarring. He literally went from he didn't know the word for daughter, and he couldn't figure out that there was no glass in the window, to now he's this kind of insightful savant that is giving Marge oh, this is exactly what's wrong with Lisa, and it was weird.
And they've played with that in the past. He knew all the Supreme Court justices. And it's but those kind of things, like they're the spikes, and an otherwise certain personality that kind of throws you for a little bit of a loop.
And it's like silly trivia. It's funny that he knows all the Supreme Court justices.
Not Souter.
It's weird that he's suddenly this.
I mean, it'd be a stronger choice if he said something and then Marge figures it out. And then Homer's like, no, it's not like that at all. It's more like she's embarrassed by you.
So
no, wait, that doesn't sound right either. And that's kind of where they were going with it, but but he just kept stumbling over his words.
So you said that would have been a stronger choice. Are you implying that it was a weaker choice to have Homer go, "Oh no, I'm distracting you, and forget that, and the 7 of clubs is in your purse," and I don't know what any of that was.
Not only am I saying I don't like it when they fluctuate from scene to scene, but literally within the scene, he goes from this psychiatry savant that knows exactly what's wrong with Lisa and how to explain it to Marge, to this literal gibberish where he's panicking because Marge is getting upset. And he literally starts waving his arms and
like you would like a child,
and
like
then,
a baby.
And then suddenly it turns into what becomes a running gag where he tries to do a magic trick and hide a 7 of clubs.
I
in her purse.
hated all of that. The whole Homer in the bed being like,
Oh, he
"Ooh, is it
claps.
7 of clubs."
He claps in her face and goes, "Remember nothing."
Yeah, awful, and just demeaning to Marge
Right.
too. But
and he does mansplain occasionally. Through
Yes,
it was
very
Ed
true.
Sullivan, honey. I know, Homer. But,
Yeah, right.
But it's also like it's kind of charming because he is a little clueless. Like that is just he thinks
Right.
she's an idiot. You know.
Yeah.
So now Lisa is trying to study in the kitchen because she's like, I really can't turn into mom. I have to keep up on my studies. And Marge is now resentful now that she knows that Lisa doesn't want to turn into her. And how do you guys feel about this? Because is Marge right to be resentful?
I think that Oh, sorry. Continue.
Well, no, I like
Continue your gasp.
I was breathing in to say something. You were already talking, and I like that you were like, continue.
You were a sentence in. Dan was literally. Please continue, Dan.
All right. I thought
From
it was,
where you left off.
I thought it was interesting that Marge would be mad. I would think Marge's character would be to be sad about that and kind of withdraw from Lisa a little bit. Kind of like Marge Be Not Proud when she found out that Bart was stealing and she couldn't believe it. Like she was so hurt that she just shut down. I feel like she would have a similar reaction to that.
Yeah.
I feel that, and similar to that episode, she eventually does get angry at Bart. And
She does,
it builds to that point.
She's wounded at
Right.
first, and I feel like we missed that in this episode.
I would have been okay with her being angry if, if she had come out and said, "You don't know the things that I've done for you," or all this other stuff, and then that allows Lisa to say, I'm not saying I don't appreciate everything. I just don't want to turn out like you, and then that. Spins to the next thing. Instead, it's just them kind of arguing, and then she goes to school. Like there's no build to that beat. It's just it's purely emotional and no plot whatsoever.
No.
And correct me in Reddit. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm right, and I just cannot think of a specific example. But I'm convinced I've seen this before in The Simpsons, where Marge is upset because Lisa doesn't think her life is good enough.
I was also. It definitely
It's on the
happened,
tip
and I
of my
cannot
tongue.
remember what
Yeah.
episode it was.
But let us know in the Reddit.
Yeah, but it's definitely been done before.
And only in the Reddit. Please stop mailing me postcards directly to We Studios with corrections, like things you got wrong on the podcast, and it's like an Acapulco postcard.
I would love it if someone sent us a postcard.
Yeah, actually,
we have a PO
I'm saying that
box.
out loud. Oh yeah, we do have
We
a
have
PO
a PO
box.
box.
Have you checked it?
Yeah, I check it all the time. We literally have never gotten any mail.
How much do we pay for it a month?
We need to have it in order to have the email mailing list. So
How often do we use the emailing?
it went out last week, Jack. And like 9 weeks before this episode actually came out. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Someone sent us a postcard is my message. Where are we now? Oh, I wanted to point out Lisa on the bus seeing the Cloisters Academy bus.
Yeah.
Is that where
Yeah.
we're at? Okay.
Yeah.
So Lisa is on the bus going to Springfield Elementary, and then right alongside the bus pulls up a big, fancy, expensive bus from Cloisters Academy. Springfield has a lot of fancy schools
Yes,
that we
they
really
do.
never see all that often.
Yeah, Principal Valiant.
Yeah, Principal Valiant, the school that Bart
Princey
went
Awards.
to in Bart the Genius.
But would they have their own bus if you're really in that kind of rich? Wouldn't they all just like Uber to school every day?
I don't know.
I don't know.
have no
I don't know
idea.
what rich people do or how they do things, but I imagine they wouldn't. Take a bus.
You know what I really liked actually was the bus pulls up and Otto looks at the bus driver and goes, "Sup, bro?" And the guy just goes, "I'm not your brother."
Yeah, that was
funny.
perfectly executed.
Yeah. But Lisa sees Cloisters Academy and she's just like, oh, I don't even know if she says this, but she's like, I wish I could go there. And then the fucking next scene is her and Homer and Marge in the dean's office being like, well, you want to apply to the school, huh?
Yeah, we're not dum-dums. We can connect the dots and understand how they get there, but it just feels like poor storytelling.
There's a stronger beat if instead of going to school, she's coming back from school from all those moments where she can't, figure these things out.
Yeah.
And then she goes to Marge, and this is the scene where she and Marge have a confrontation.
Yeah.
Because then Marge is like, I'm angry, blah, 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 blah. And Lisa can be like, if you really love me, you'll take me to see this headmaster, and maybe I can get a scholarship, you know?
And it's so weird because, we just talked how Marge was mad at Lisa because of this whole thing. Then, not too many scenes later, they're talking to the headmaster at this Cloisters Academy, and Marge makes a deal with him to do the entire school's laundry so that Lisa could go without paying any tuition. Why would she do that if she's angry at Lisa?
Yep.
I know Marge is a wonderful mother and would do that, but we never see in the story the turn.
Yeah.
It's so bizarre.
We never get reminded of that moment,
Yeah,
which is
there's
why
no-
it should be, that she gave up her life for her kids.
Right.
And there's a moment that reminds her, looking through the yearbook.
Like, this is why I gave up everything for you, so
Right.
that you could succeed. So I want you to go to this fancy school, and I'm going to work myself to the bone for
And
it.
if it's not obvious, this is that much more muddled because it's not clear whether this is a Lisa episode or a Marge episode. Because
absolutely.
now, like, this whole school thing came out of nowhere. And I was
Nowhere.
like, oh, now it's definitively a Lisa episode, despite all of that Marge setup and the fact that this
Right.
is rooted in Marge's failure. It was just all over the place.
And this was coming at the end of the third act.
Schrodinger's plot.
Yes.
It's the end of the third act, and it's like Lisa's going to go to a new school, and I'm like, okay, I don't think she's going to last there very long because we got like 3 minutes left in this episode.
Right. Well, this is, talking about the 4-act structure.
Yeah.
The 4-act structure is a very weird beast because it's completely different than everything that came before in the Simpsons history. But the structure is shoehorned into it. You have, Sorry.
Well, I just wanted to point out, traditionally, that most sitcoms had a 3-act structure.
Yes.
There'd be 3 commercial breaks.
Or 2-act.
Or 2-act. But with TV, the industry being what it is, nowadays, and for the past number of years since this episode was on, Fox has been doing a 4-act break so they can get more commercials in there. And the show's a little bit shorter.
And if you watch the classic Simpsons, it's typically 3 acts. It
is.
And it's very interesting to see. God, I don't even know how many seasons it is now. It might even be more than the 3 acts. But it's so funny that you can divide a line, not just HD and standard def animation, but there's 3-act Simpsons and there's 4-act Simpsons.
Yeah.
And you could do a whole college course on the difference between those. As a writer, do you have especially somebody who's written for TV?
Yeah.
Do you have a preference, or is there a particular reason you don't care for 4 acts?
It's not that I dislike the 4-act structure. I think the 4-act structure actually can be used very well. If you look at some of the better Fox half-hour comedies that utilize it, they structure it like a film script. We have the first act, the first half of the second act. It's followed by a midpoint, which is the cliffhanger halfway through the episode. The second half of the second act, which builds to the third act break, and then it's all resolved in the third act, which is 1, 2, 3, 4. When you have a show like The Simpsons that's predicated, its structure is the 3-act structure. So you have the build-up, and then kind of like, I'm going to forget the name of the episode. I'm going to be castigated for it. But the episode with the bear tax, that leads into the whole...
Much apoo about nothing.
Thank you very much. I have that written in my notes, and I just
I will
didn't
not
look at it.
castigate you, though.
Yeah.
You can stay.
So,
but watch yourself, counselor.
what? You want me to drink you? Right here? So...
Hello, David?
Yeah.
I'm really tempted.
I love you.
Let's just do the episode. Let's just do the whole episode.
I could. Come see Bottomless Pete. Sorry.
I'm not wearing a tie at all.
But in that episode, in Much Ado About Nothing, it has that opening act, which leads into the bear tax, which leads into the immigration, and then it builds into that.
Yes.
If this was that episode, it would end with the bear tax. And that would lead then into something. It would feel completely off, even if it was the same beats, because it's cut in a different way. And so you have that same structure here, where you have the cold open, which supposedly leads into the next episode, the next part of the episode.
Yeah.
But it really doesn't, because they kind of have to keep things moving because it's so short.
Yeah.
You could have a show that's like Rick and Morty in a 4-act structure because the dialogue is so quick and the beats come so fast and furious.
They can cram it in.
They can cram it in and they can keep things moving because The Simpsons is so reliant on the visual gags and the little one-liners. It feels a lot slower than it actually is because they constantly have to keep cutting. That second act is 3.5 minutes long, which I looked at it. It tends to be the standard now. That's what it is. But they have to cram
that's a lot
teeny.
of stuff to get into a very small amount of time.
Yeah. I like, personally, the episodes that we've seen that have the 4-act structure where it's basically just a 3-act episode and then there's a coda at the end.
Yeah.
So, like, the Halloween episodes do that, obviously, because they have the 3 vignettes, and then usually they've been doing the 4th one. Listen to any Mayoween episode. We talk about it at length. Or the one that jumped to my mind was we watched the Judd Apatow episode that he wrote as a spec script during season 1. It had a natural 3-act structure already, so then they just had added this weird coda at the end that we didn't really like. And the rest of the episode was pretty solid because it was
in general, I don't like the 4-act Simpsons because I feel once the story kind of resolves itself in the 3rd act, I have that satisfaction as somebody consuming the story where I was like, well, that's done. And then, it's like the Return of the King problem. It's like, another ending.
Right. It's like they saved everything, and now there's 40 more minutes.
It's like once you decide you're full, you can't eat another bite without gagging. It's like once I've decided the story is over, I can't.
I mean, there are
I
4
check out.
endings in this episode. There's the resolution of Lisa and Marge, where she says, "I guess I won't go to the academy."
Right.
And then you have the B story ending, where Bart and Nelson come in. We're drunk on apple juice.
Yeah, at 4 a.m.
And then you have the third act, the third ending, which is when Homer comes in with Maggie with the
toy. I
with
found
the
the
doll.
toy.
I found the toy. And then it cuts to back to the gas station, which actually has a pretty funny closing gag.
Yeah. So back at the gas station. So basically, Homer comes back and is like, "I got the toy," which I kind of liked that it was a callback to this forgotten plot thread, but it was also kind of annoying because it reminded me this was nothing. But he got the thing because he broke into the gas station and just looked through all the boxes and took the toy. And the very last scene of the episode is back at the gas station, and the sarcastic man is there, and he's like, "Oh, did the guy take any money?" And the clerk says no, and he just goes, "Well, he did now," and he shuts his own pockets full of money.
But doesn't
that
he
was
own?
funny.
So he owns that place, and he's going to collect the insurance.
He's probably the manager
okay.
or whatever. I'm sure there's some way he can make it work. He's a very sarcastic man. He can do it.
Yeah, about this ending. So for one thing, I liked. There's something I really liked and something I didn't really like. I hated the ending. We've had this plenty of times on Worst Episode Ever, and one that really always stuck out with me, I think, was an early episode. I remember when we were recording, I was like, "Man, we've been doing this forever," and I think it was like episode 4.
Yeah,
But basically, it was when the Heavenly Creatures parody, where Lisa gets a new British best friend.
Yes,
and it's pretty much an A plot throughout, and then it just ends out of nowhere. Just like, all right, we're not friends anymore, and the episode ends. And we were like,
Yeah.
What just happened?
How can that
There was
be?
literally no resolution. It just stopped. Like they ran out of paper in the printer, and the script was done. And that was this ending where Lisa's like, all right, I'm not going to go to the school anymore because you're suffering with the laundry. And Marge is like, okay. And all of the other character work they've been quote unquote doing.
Yeah.
Or I guess I should have put the quotes behind character work. The character quote unquote work, quote unquote doing. I don't take showers.
I may eat my own dandruff.
But basically, it literally, there's no, she's just like, okay, they're like, all right, we're done. We forgive each other. And, Lisa's okay with, maybe she's still going to turn into Marge. Marge is okay with Lisa thinking Marge's life is terrible. Like, there's zero resolution.
It was rushed. It was taking the ending of Lisa's Pony and just shoving it into this episode and like hoping for the best, which does not come. The best is not there.
This is probably my least favorite bottom 5 endings that we've covered on the show out of 100 odd episodes.
Yeah.
But what I really did like, even though I agree with Steele that the whole Jingle All the Way plot was completely unnecessary and I didn't like it, it's there. And I actually did like that they turned into a joke. Look, we're resolving all our stories. That joke only works if you go 110%. If you do it 95%, it doesn't work. If you do it 100%, it could go either way. If you do 110%, usually I'm on board. And the fact that they go all out and Homer just bursts in and goes, "I found the toy," that's no resolution.
The fact
either.
that he bursts in is what was funny to me, but I didn't like it on the whole.
Because think about it, it's the exact same problem I have with the A plot. There's really no resolution. All of a
there's
sudden
nothing.
it ends. But because they turned that into the joke, I liked it.
Yeah.
I don't know. What did you think? Did you like that whole 4 endings at once, 3 endings at once kind of?
Once again, I think that in the right episode, it could have been very funny.
That's the problem, yeah.
It's like having that kind of nested story, where it kind of like zooms in and then zooms out again, almost like a cloud atlas or something like that. Like that would be interesting to me. And we've seen The Simpsons be able to pull off a lot of great episodes or choices in really, really short, and 22 short films about Springfield.
Yep.
They have like minute-long scenes that tell an entire story.
Yeah.
And they get it done. It can be done. It can be nested like that.
They have the technology.
Yes, we have the will. We have the way. It's just this time it just felt there was so much slack. None of these parts are working together.
No,
there
not
are
at
a
all.
lot, and that's why I understand why some people like this, because there are moments in here that could be good. There are story beats that are interesting. They just don't work together.
Exactly, they don't work together at all, and on the whole, the episode is just a big mess.
And just to out my geek credentials right here.
Oh, let's do it.
Just so people have
I think you did
target.
that. I think you did that when you said you worked on Tron Legacy.
No, but I mean, if you want to throw darts at me, throw it at me for this. Huge Magic the Gathering fan when I was a kid.
Okay.
And I remember like everybody when they were kids before, they really started getting into big into Magic, and I got out because it was just costing me an arm and a leg.
Sure.
Parents teach your kids Magic the Gathering, they won't have enough money for drugs. So, And I remember me and everybody else had these decks of just like all our best cards. That didn't necessarily work well together, but like I don't want to take out my Shivan Dragon, because it's one of the best cards I got. It's one of the most expensive cards I got too. And then slowly you learn, okay, you can't just throw your best cards into there. There has to be a theme.
You need a method to your madness.
Right. And that's what this feels. There are great moments in here. There are spikes. I laughed a couple points that are really funny, and they just don't click.
You could have a really nice bay window, but if you don't have that skeletal wooden structure that I don't know what the name of, that bay window is just going to fall to the ground and shatter into a million pieces.
And then you're going to bay in the window? Nope. I don't know what that is. Cut that out.
Oh, boy.
You're going to Michael Bay in the window.
Bay him.
Shit just got real.
Well, as long as we don't have to feed this one.
Tell her no deal.
All right, so that's going to do it for Lisa Simpson. This Isn't Your Life. We are going to rank this episode on our patented Hippo scale. We're looking at the humor, the integrity, the production values, and the originality on a 0 to 5 scale, 0 being the worst, 5 being the best, and 2.5 being smack dab in the middle. Jack, can you put 2 minutes on that old clock of ours?
Beep, boop, pop, pop, pop.
All right.
What a fancy clock.
It is very fancy. Steele, I'm going to turn to you first, and I'm going to ask you on a 0 to 5 scale, what do you think about the humor of this episode?
I thought that there are actually a few moments that I really enjoyed. Overall, not so much, so I'm going to say 2, maybe 1.5, 2.
Below Av, for sure. But Jack, what are you thinking on humor?
I was also thinking around 1.5. I might go 1, but I did laugh a few times, and I even had a couple of Santa Claus moments in there.
It's true. You were just
Santa
gently
Claus was
chuckling.
coming to town. So let's say 1.5 for now.
Yeah, I was kind of leaning towards a 1 just because I did not like this episode, but...
There's also no jokes I hated that deduct points.
You're right. There were only things I kind of liked and things I actively did like. So I'm going to give it a 1.5. It's definitely below average, but not the worst episode in the world.
Okay, integrity, Steele. So character integrity, our characters themselves. And did this hit you in the feels?
This is 0.0 for me. This is absolutely... It just...
We've had zeros before, but a 0.0?
It's 0.00.
Oh,
Fat
my
Chunk
goodness.
is stupid, No, it's just Homer was all over the place. Bart goes nowhere. Lisa, she has the greatest arc, and there isn't really an arc there.
Yeah.
I did like the moment at the end where it looks like she's sad that she's misleading her mother, about how she wants to grow up like her. Like that almost pushes me, but there's nothing to back it up.
Almost something.
And then Marge is once again it's not terrible, but she's all over the place. Like I don't buy it.
Yeah. So 0.0 for you, Steele. Jack, what do you think?
I would go 0.0. The biggest crime for integrity for me is when characters, I hate them and they're mean spirited, and you have jerk ass Homer, and I don't think that they were necessarily bad, but God, they were every single character in this episode, like Steele was saying, were all over the place. Homer fluctuated within scenes. Bart's whole B plot, I don't know what was going on there. Marge was resentful. Just such a mess. And a lot of the blame can be in the originality category, but a lot of the blame is here too. But nobody is an active jerk ass, so I won't go 0. I might go 0.5. I'm gonna hover around 1 for now.
I'm kind of 0 or 0.5 myself. I can't tell if the characterization of Marge, if I hated it completely in this episode. I don't think that I did, because this is not like, hey everyone, let's like mock Marge kind of episode.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go a 0.5. But
0.50. How about that?
A 0.50. Yeah, I think that's fair. The production values. Steele, what do you got there?
Production values.
If you take out that first bit of animation, this is a competently made episode. Like the music is fine. I think the voice acting is still solid. Like there's no moment where I felt that the voice work is terrible. Skinner sounds like Skinner.
Mm-hmm.
There are a few episodes where the voice is just all over the place. So this is a 2. Like it doesn't elevate it, but it's not terrible.
Yeah. All right, Jack, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. Fastball down the middle. There's no guest star, so no worries there. There was no weird choices by the actors. Maybe I would say this is more writing than Dan Castellaneta, but Homer's little gibberish in the bedroom there with the magic trick was no good. But that's more script. I could maybe even go to 3 because I really like that.
You're an insane crazy person.
Because I really like that itchy and scratchy opening. That was a very strong opening, but I don't know if that's enough to push it to a 3. 2.5.
2.5 was way too high. I don't know why. This episode to me was just very
This was below
visually uninteresting and flat. Nothing about it was especially good, so it's definitely below average. I'm thinking 1.5 on production.
All right. And originality, was this an original story? And how is that? This is perfect category for you, Steele, because this is story structure, literally the 4-act structure we were talking about. Were these scenes in the right order or in the right place, or were they doing their jobs?
So this is not a difficult thing for me, but I understand each of these elements could work in something else. So I can't give it a 0, but I can't give it higher than a 0.5. You know, it's just it's such a mess that the ideas are so strong that it makes me give you that half point, but otherwise I can't give it anything more than that. The structure's all over the place. There's no momentum. It's slack. It just doesn't feel right to me.
Jack, I'm going to jump in and say I agree with literally everything Steele just said, and I'm giving it a 0.5 also.
Okay, so a lot of pressure here. It's a shame because there's two plots, and it's so rare to find two stories in here that I would give a 5 in originality because it's my favorite thing in the world. I've never seen it before. I've never seen a Jingle All the Way plot in The Simpsons, and I've never seen a Bart by default coincidence keeps beating somebody up. 2 really original ideas that are hampered by completely unoriginal
not
ideas.
doing well.
Literally 20 different episodes they've cribbed from. We said Lisa the Pony. We said Bart the General. Lisa
the Pony. I want to see that episode.
Lisa's Pony. Bart, that would be like that South Park Walrus episode.
Bart's General. Lisa the Pony.
Bart the General. Lisa's Pony. So many things going on here. So unfortunately, I guess that more than cancels it out. And then story structure. Ugh, what a mess. What a mess. I will give points for Jingle All the Way and for the coincidence plot. I'm going to go a little high probably than you guys would like, but I'm going to go 1.
What? That's higher than I'd like.
1.0.
You just made an enemy for life.
You just made the list, Jack.
That's it. You just made the list.
All right, so you know what's going on here. We're going to do our little mathy poo here and add up the numbers.
Our little mathy poo,
Our little
oh
mathy
boy.
poo. But before that, we've got to read our new Patreon listeners. My favorite part of the show. Obviously, everybody that really loves the show is pretty much signed up for Patreon by now. So
Absolutely.
we're going to have diminishing returns here. That's for the best. I like shorter episodes.
It's not diminishing returns. It means your name will be highlighted, especially in the episode. You don't got to share the spotlight with Bob and Joe. You're here by yourself.
But to all the people that did sign up for the first week, we're very grateful.
We're very
and your
grateful.
names are just as important.
We love you just as much as Bob and Joe. And if you want to get out on this action, you want to give us some of your money on Patreon, you go to patreon.com/WeStudios, WEE Studios.
And obviously, we're very grateful for all this, and it's great. But there is some really cool stuff you get at most of the tiers, besides free sync points. Just this episode, we recorded us actually watching the episode. Which
Yes, we did.
We only did it once before. Steele was with us, and you can actually see our in-the-moment groans and grunts and occasional laughs.
Live groaning.
Occasional guffaws.
You want to know if we actually laughed at points we said?
Then you got to sign up for Patreon.
$2 a month, you can get that exclusive audio, baby.
Just like these two guys signed up for Patreon.
All right, we got Fisher Michaels. Thank you so much,
Thank
Fisher
you,
Michaels.
Michael S. Fisher.
He goes by Fisher Michaels.
He does, as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Actually, let's read it. Let's do it the right way. Michael S., quote, Fisher Michaels, Fisher.
I think he put it in quotes because he wanted to go by Fisher Michaels, but it's fine.
You think so?
I think so.
No, because everybody else uses nicknames.
All right.
Whatever. And Josh Kerp.
Friend of the show.
Friend of We Studios.
Yes.
And check out him on Uprocks. Thank you very
Uprocks.com.
much.
Thank you so much, Josh.
Josh, for the help, and enjoy listening to us watch an episode of The Simpsons.
Absolutely. Okay, so we have crunched our numbers, and Lisa Simpson, This Isn't Your Life from season 22 has ranked as a slightly better episode. That is affecting the microphones greatly.
Well, it's not a drum roll if it's not rocking the room.
Is that true?
Yeah, you never heard that?
You gotta rock the room if you want a drum.
I believe that's Proverbs.
That's what Chuck Berry said. Yeah, absolutely.
It's ranked as a slightly better... God damn it. It's ranked as a slightly better episode than The Boys of Bummer and a slightly worse episode than Father Knows Worst. That puts it at number 9.
Oh, wow.
Right in the bottom
made
10.
the top 10. It's a David Letterman original.
Yeah, that pushed out My Pods and Boomsticks from the bottom 10.
Wow. Yeah.
So there is a big upset.
Steele.
You did it, Steele.
Are you proud?
Oh God.
Bottom
Was
shooter.
it worth the
Steele be not proud.
Was it worth the hour and a half you spent watching? No, 4 hours you spent watching this episode over and
It
over?
was 8 times, and it was 20 minutes of story, so 160 minutes, a little over 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
To spend time with such handsome gentlemen as
Oh.
yourselves.
Yo.
Absolutely.
Yo.
But I will never get that part of my soul
No.
back.
I
It's
would
gone.
love it if now you've done the episode, you go back and you're like, let me watch it 8 more times just to see if we were too harsh on it. But
that's
Steele,
it.
thank you so much for being here, Steele. You were a terrific guest. If people want to find you on the internet, what do you got going on? You want to plug anything? This is your chime.
Absolutely. You can find me. My website is steelefilipek.com. I write essays on video games and transmedia, both of which I write. You can
I don't think this is the right audience for you. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
starlightrunner.com. You can catch up on the latest stuff that we're working on. Our website is currently under a redesign. And then also RadioRoomShow.com. Radio Room is my and Adam Lance Garcia's our pet project. We do old-fashioned style radio dramas. You can check us out there. And
Wait, so you can actually put out content that's audio only?
Yeah,
and
yes.
people will listen to that?
I mean,
What?
people won't pay for it, unless they're idiots. But
They're suckers at patreon.com/WeStudios.
That's awesome.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. We got 3 more episodes to end out the season. They'll be released in July, and we're going out with we're ending with my series, Queens of the Sapphire Sea, which is an action adventure serial set in the French Mediterranean in the 1930s about a pair of airplane mercenaries who hunt down and have fun and go nuts. So
That's so cool. Yeah.
And listen, we're going to do remasters of them starting in June, so you'll be able to hear.
Oh, special edition.
Are you
Oh,
going
yeah,
to
special
edit a Jabba the Hutt scene?
Bisa Waniwonga, Chewbacca, Queens of the Sapphire Sea. Sorry. Oh, yeah, so that's what's going on. And
Love that salacious crumb.
oh, yeah, the lounge
I
lizard.
try to squeeze it in anytime I can.
Why
That's
not?
delightful.
And where can we find you personally on Twitter? Or Facebook?
Twitter
Yes,
guy?
Words of Steel. I don't post all that often, but I do post Words of Steel, at Words of Steel, I should say. And yeah, that's kind of it.
Cool. Cool. I'm at Jackie No Breaks, if that interests you at all.
I am not interested by that, but I am at Then Dan Says on Twitter. I mostly tweet about wrestling.
Yeah, so don't follow it because it's terrible nerd stuff about naked men who
They're
touch
not
each other.
naked. They wear trunks
That's even
And
hotter.
they grease
that makes
themselves up.
That makes it hotter. I'm not even
in
lying.
gorilla position, which is a thing.
Like gorilla, like monkey, or gorilla, like guerrilla warfare.
It's the spot right before you walk out of the curtains into the arena. It's called gorilla position for whatever reason.
I mean, how's it spelled?
Like
just answer,
gorilla.
Just answer the fucking question, Dan.
Like a gorilla.
How do you spell it?
like a gorilla.
How do you spell it?
Like a gorilla.
Like what kind of gorilla?
Like the gorilla.
Like which one?
Yeah.
With like
Yeah.
a
Like the monkeys who are fighting in the trenches in the war for the Planet of the
Oh,
Apes
gorilla.
coming this
Yeah.
fall.
They should have called the new Planet of the Apes Guerrilla Warfare.
Oh my God! Yes.
Starring Woody Harrelson.
That was a missed opportunity.
Huge missed opportunity.
You can follow the show on Twitter. We're at Worst Episode Pod or at We Studios Pod for all the things that we do.
If you want to catch up on the news via Frankie
Yes,
screen
that's how I
grabs.
do it. And that's how you do that. And you go to our website, which is weepodcast.com, weepodcast.com. While you're there, you can click our Amazon links to help support the show that way. You can also get to our Reddit, our YouTube, our
Yeah.
other show, 90s Percentile.
And spread also Steele has been
Which
on
Steele
90s
has been on
percentile twice
2
already.
times.
So check that out. And we've said this a few times. The best way, if you can't afford to give us any money, honestly, just spread the word of mouth is great. If you see there's all these Simpsons think pieces and BuzzFeed listicles and all this, just throw a shout out to us in the comments and just let people know, hey, there's these 2 guys. You might have listened to them a couple years ago. They stopped doing Leonardo DiCaprio impressions. Please start listening to them again.
Or just sign your friend up for the We Studios newsletter. Just go to newsletter.westudios.com and you can do it that way.
There you go. And you've already heard our newest additions to Patreon, and you can always join that. One of the tiers, Dan, is the $10 tier, $10 a month.
That's right.
And in exchange, you get to pick either a topic for our episode 90s Percentile, or you can actually pick the episode we will cover for worst episode ever.
Yeah.
We don't want you just signing up, and as soon as we pick your episode, you disappear into the dark web, the Silk Road have you. So it takes a couple months, but it's been a couple months. And I think this is going to be the summer of Patreon.
The summer of We Leet status.
Where we pick the episodes that you guys have directly asked us to do. And I guess we're going to start that next episode.
We're going to start a next episode. We're going to do an episode from season 12 called New Kids on the Block.
And who suggested this? Who's our first Patreon guy.
Our first
Or
Patreon,
girl.
Wee-Leet or Wee-Light suggester.
You wrote Wee-Leet.
It's Wee-Light.
It looks like Wee-Light.
All
It
right.
looks like it's less than.
Well,
So who's our?
They're not.
Who's our inferior list supporter here?
it's Liam Charles suggested New
Oh,
Kids on the
thank
Block.
you,
So we're
Liam.
going to watch it in 2 weeks.
Can't
Come
wait.
tune in and watch with us.
That's superliminal advertising.
That's exactly right. Steele, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much
You've
for
been a
having
terrific
me.
guest. As a huge, huge fan of the podcast, obviously you know how we end every episode, which is what?
What's that famous catchphrase we end every single episode with?
I actually don't know.
That's it.
That's it. I actually
don't know. Bye.
Cloisters Academy? That bus could pick me up any day of the week.
Zep, bro? I'm not your brother.